In 1902, engineer William John Wilkes had an idea for a new kind of electric railroad serving New York City. After all, we were on the cusp of a new century, and this was the age of invention. We had steel. We had large sheets of glass produced in factories. We had the internal combustion engine. We had electricity. We had the light bulb. We had electric motors. There was the telegraph, the telephone, and the phonograph. We even had indoor plumbing. Wilkes's vision included multiple rail lines serving the entire region, coming underground to a common location to a final station stop. And this station would be majestic, large, a modern transportation machine. It would be a Grand Central Terminal. So why does it look like it was designed to be an ancient Roman bath? In 1931, the modern Swiss architect Le Corbusier wrote in Towards a New Architecture, quote, "Rome is the damnation of the half-educated. To send architectural students to Rome is to cripple them for life," unquote. This from the same man who in the same book proclaimed the Greek temple at the Acropolis, the Parthenon, as the standard of great architecture. But Le Corbusier might then agree with me that the design of the Grand Central Terminal missed an opportunity to go full modern, and he might point out that most of the partners in the architecture firms that played a role in the design of railroad terminals in New York City in this era spent a considerable amount of time studying classicism in Europe, if not in Rome itself. The city of Rome has only ever had two industries throughout its long history: bureaucracy and construction. And whether it's republic, military, empire, or church bureaucracy, that has always been secondary to the great architectural buildings that inhabit Rome. For example, Rome has many beautiful but empty churches because Italian men would rather build a church than go to one. And I can speak from personal experience that the engineering of ancient and Renaissance Roman buildings decorated with Greek motifs is overwhelmingly impressive to an architecture student. Don't get me wrong. I have no criticism of Grand Central Terminal as it stands today. It is a phenomenal achievement both for its engineering and how it employed neoclassical style. But you can see from the competition for the design of Grand Central that nobody submitted what we would call a modern building. Modernism was in its infancy, and perhaps in another 10 years, the designs might have been different. But at this point, in what Mark Twain dubbed the Gilded Age, historic European styles of architecture was an indication of good breeding. To build classically was to have instant gravitas. Yet, on the working side of the train tracks, even at the time Grand Central was being designed, was an amazing parabolic steel-arched glass shed, which would have been an incredible forward-thinking design for the terminal itself in 1902. But it was considered not pretty enough. Reed and Stem won the competition and was paired with the firm Warren and Wetmore to finalize the design of the terminal. McKim, Mead, and White lost this commission, but soon built Pennsylvania Station across town. Both teams of architects had their 20th century railroad terminals look like ancient Roman baths, reflecting their European experience. Roman baths are amazing buildings, so if you're going to steal, it is noteworthy that they stole the best. These complexes, as large as 22 acres and often built at the terminus of an aqueduct, included 3 temperature pools of fresh, running water for bathing and swimming. They had massages, games of sport, theater, music, and good Roman food. But this was before tomato sauce, pasta, and pizza, so you might be taking your chance on that one. It was the cultural center of Roman afternoon life for the elite in all their major cities. And we can see from the Baths of Diocletian in Rome, preserved because it became a church, that the baths featured a central high space, vaulted such that large round-top windows would bring in plenty of natural light. In architecture today, these are often called thermal windows, not because of their heat properties, but because they occurred in the Roman baths called the thermae. Palladio also used windows like this, which is why they are sometimes called Palladian windows. It is not hard to see how the style influenced the main concourse of Grand Central, which is really the glory of the building. It is so large you can fit the Sphinx in it, a modest-sized Staten Island ferry, and the Statue of Liberty. They could stand, but her arm holding the torch would poke through the ceiling. You can see how in the space the round-top windows bring in plenty of natural light. The architects aligned the triple windows on the east and west facades with 43rd Street, assuring that the light would never be blocked by some future building. The windows also serve as bridges between the offices stacked on the four corners of the terminal. The floors of these bridges are thick glass, so most of the light will not be blocked no matter what angle the light is coming into the room. So while the Greco-Roman decoration is exquisite, I maintain that Grand Central Terminal's appeal is due to the monumental nature of the space and not its style. It is an astounding modern machine building, akin to what Italian architect Sant'Elia would be drawing while Grand Central was being built. The terminal is the above-ground face of an underground rail yard of 75 acres. The wide Park Avenue we know today is the space left over when the tracks were buried as the major northern railroads went electric. Grand Central Terminal has 45 platforms and 67 tracks, more than any other railroad station in the world, and they are adding more. Over 750,000 people pass through it each workday. It is so bustling, it has entered the lexicon as a simile. Well, this place is as busy as Grand Central Station. Oh, and by the way, the official name is Grand Central Terminal, not Station. But if you noticed, in the main concourse, with hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers passing through it every day, nobody bumps into anybody else. After the Second World War, as Americans moved to planes and cars, intercontinental train travel diminished, and so did Grand Central Terminal's luster. Grand Central evolved over time, and some of the grander spaces were filled in for offices, depriving the concourse of some natural light. Commercial signage and clocks were modified over time, and commuter trains moved from just the lower level to the upper level. And for a while, CodeX featured a wonderful giant colorama slide, which would change with the seasons and put the concourse in a different colored light. The Apple Store is there now, which is a fitting metaphor for the changing technology. In 1963, a new building by Walter Gropius, the Pan Am building, now known as the MetLife building, went up just north of the terminal over the train tracks. After the demolition of Pennsylvania Station, New Yorkers banded together to make sure the same thing did not happen to Grand Central Terminal. There was a design submitted by architect Marcel Breuer, which showed a new tower going above the terminal, which was in some ways appropriate as that was part of the program in the original 1902 competition. But Breuer's designs had alternatives, some of which obliterated the original Grand Central Terminal. This justifiably got critics up in arms. In the 1990s, Grand Central was restored by Beyer, Blinder, and Bell to bring back a lot of the natural light and clean up the terminal in general. Great care was taken to combine modern technology, such as automatic signage, with the original designs. The effect is a bit steampunk, but it works. They took the underutilized lower level and turned it into a food court with over 20 food options. Given the variety, quality, and lower cost, it is my favorite place to eat in New York City. There's a lot of other really interesting information about Grand Central, all of which we cannot cover here. But these tidbits include things like there's a tennis club in there now in a place that used to be a TV studio. For a while, there was a movie theater inside of Grand Central. You could, at one point, take your train from your hometown to Grand Central and then go to the top of the Pan Am building to catch a helicopter to go out to the New York City airports. For a while, they had demonstrations of ice skating, and the high school bowling championships were held in Grand Central. And yet, ironically, you have never been able to go swimming inside Grand Central Terminal. I'm Michael Molinelli, and this is Architecture CodeX.